Hi, I'm Ryan Neal, and Julie, the host of the Mother's Quest podcast, is my mom. She invited me to share a quick dedication to all the moms out there who may be tuning in. The other day, my mom shared with me some of her worries over her struggle to put out this Mother's Day podcast episode on time. She felt that she may have taken on too much, but worried if she didn't get it done well, then she'd be failing as a role model to me and my brother. My response? Mom, we might not be watching you quite as much as you think. Maybe not the most helpful response, but while it may not be as simple as kids being inspired to do great by the sheer force of motherly influence, I still think it's important for mothers to be seen by the world beyond the work of their children. With or without Mother's Quest, whether or not she finished this episode, my mom is still smart and strong and caring and dedicated to her loved ones just the same. But seeing her work towards her dream does give me a sense of admiration I wouldn't have had otherwise. The world has been run by a patriarchal system for as long as it's existed, but seeing mothers at work as equals to the men around them raises generations like me ready to push change forward. I still don't know if I'm willing to accept the risks that come with pursuing my own dreams, but my mom has shown me that doing what you love is possible. And I've watched enough Netflix dramas to know that not every child has as supportive of a mother as I have. So, to all the mothers out there working at home or beyond your family, thank you for your service. It might not be easy, but you're making the world a better place for both yourself and your kids. Keep on keeping on. Back to you, Julie.
Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to two high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I?
If you're hearing this episode around when it goes live, it's Mother's Day in the midst of a global pandemic. And if you're anything like the vast majority of the mothers I've been talking with, you've been feeling disoriented and like you've lost yourself during these last few months. You may be wondering, how am I ever going to come back home to myself? I had been feeling this way too, overwhelmed with fear, moving through all of the stages of grief, and juggling demands at home that now included supporting my children's distance learning on top of all the other things. For the first time in the 3 years since I launched the podcast, I stopped recording and releasing episodes. And I honestly wondered whether my work even mattered. All around me, life as I knew it was literally shut down while we physically sheltered in place. And inside, I also felt shut down. This is not the first time I felt this way or found my way out. About a decade into motherhood, after navigating developmental delays with my oldest and 5 years of infertility to get pregnant with my youngest, I realized that in focusing so much on my own children and what they needed, I had lost parts of myself and sidelined my dreams. An experience I had one day, opening the door for two birds that had gotten trapped in my home and were crashing into the glass to get out, helped me realize that I felt trapped too and needed a door opened for me. But I also realized that no one could help me unless I opened the door for myself and took the first tentative steps toward what I now call my epic life. That day, in addition to motherhood, I also chose myself. And living my epic life became a manifesto, a simple but enduring framework. Here's how I described what living an epic life means to me in my very first episode.
Mother's Quest provides inspiration, coaching, and community to light the way and sustain a mother on her journey to becoming her best self and living her own epic life. In so doing, through the power of her example, she also inspires her children to do the same. That is really what I'm on a mission to do for myself. And I want to invite you to come along with me. I really decided that I didn't want to do this alone. And I'm building Mother's Quest as a community to help me in my own quest, but also to be a place where I can bring my own gifts to help other women do the same. For a while, I was struggling with how to capture what this thing is that I'm talking about. What am I on a quest for? And I was having a lot of conversations with people where I was getting frustrated because they were trying to help me get clear. And they kept saying, well, I think you're trying to help mothers live a balanced life. Or I think you're trying to help them not be so overwhelmed. And I kept saying, no, that isn't it. It's much more than that. It's beyond that. It's not just that I want them to be more balanced. I want them to create a life that is filled with the things that matter most. That's the life I want to create. I want it to be epic, like the kind of story I would want to read in a book where the character really went after the things that mattered. And this idea of epic captures being the hero of your own journey. But I also wanted it to encapsulate the things that I think matter most as you're going on that journey. The things that are guideposts for living an epic life, especially when you're raising your children. So after months of frustration, one night at midnight, I'm a night owl, I sat down at the table and I said, I really think it is this idea of an epic life. But how can I get epic to explain the things that matter? And I decided to try it. I pulled out a napkin and a pen and I wrote E, the first letter in epic. And the first thing I always think about for how I want to live my life most fully is that I want to be engaged mindfully with my children and my family. And so there was it, E, engaged mindfully. And the next thing I always talk about is the fact that even though I'm first and foremost focused on my children, I also know I want to make a difference beyond my family. And so P, passionate and purposeful, making a difference beyond my family, flowed out next. And the thing that I talk about after that is that I want to invest in myself, that I want to continue to create space for me to learn and to grow. And the I in EPIC represented that, invested in myself. And the last thing is I'm really clear that I don't want to do it alone, that community is built by being known and knowing others. And so the C represented connected to a strong support network, so I'm in community on my journey. So the months of frustration culminated in this clarity. And this EPIC framework has really become a grounding thing for me as I've created Mother's Quest.
After that night at the table, the first tentative step I took was to create the Mother's Quest podcast. And since then, I've had the absolute privilege of learning from over 50 mothers and a few fathers about how to show up for our children and also live a life of purpose beyond our family. And these last few months, while I was feeling adrift, I noticed this desire to listen again to some of the episodes to help me return to myself. I tuned into the wisdom of mothers who, in the face of challenge and even tragedy, found their way to a guiding manifesto of their own and chose into it with passion. I learned through them that even in times of struggle, we can still pursue living a life of meaning, a life filled with the things that matter most, our own version of an epic life. So, as a gift for myself and for you, I thought I'd re-release some of these powerful episodes on the feed in a series I'm calling Conversations to Spark Your Epic Journey, Even in the Midst of Challenge. And here, I wanted to share a few clips from those episodes along the epic guideposts to spark your return to yourself, if you need it, and encourage you to tune into the full episodes when you're able. The first episode in the series, connected to the guidepost E for engaging mindfully with our children, is one with Truth Bomb mom, Christina Kuzmich. In the midst of all the demands and all the tension at home, I knew I needed to release any semblance of holding perfectionism and allow myself to show my full humanity, flaws and all, with my children. Listen to what Christina has to say that helped me say yes to this perspective.
There's this fantasy we have of who we want to be as a mother, as a woman, we've set this fantasy, whether it came from media, whether it came from our own daydreams as a child, whether it came from us looking at somebody else and seeing 1% of their life, but just imagining that it's this amazing, perfect thing. And so now we want that. Whatever it comes from, I feel like we all have this fantasy and we can never reach it. And that keeps striving for that fantasy. It's like the cruelest thing you can do to yourself. I honestly think of it as like abusing yourself because you are always feeling let down. You always end up feeling like a loser. You always end up feeling sad. You're just not good enough because you can't reach this fantasy you've developed in your head. And so I basically decided that I don't want the fantasy. I am going to accept the reality. I started my own company and I had to come up with a name. My husband's a CPA. So he's like, okay, we got to come up with a name for this company. And I immediately said flawed. I want to call it flawed. I think it is one of my favorite words right now because that's how I choose to live my life. I am done with the fantasy. I am done with perfect, which is just an illusion. I like flawed. We are all flawed. My life is flawed. And if I can accept that, then it's much easier for me to be happy with me, to let myself make mistakes and not beat myself up over them. It is much easier for me to be a parent and love my children and know that I will not always know the right thing to do. And I will make mistakes and I will be selfish at times. And I might not give the best advice. And I can have some regrets and that's okay too. Just giving myself that permission to be human, to be flawed, takes away so much burden. And then also it allows me to connect better with friends and family and go, you know what? I need the village. I need the village because I cannot do this on my own.
And that element of being real and human and exposing and honoring the flaws comes out in all the stories that you share. And I'm certain that that's part of why so many moms like me are wanting to check in and listen to you. I'd love to hear how you bring that into the E for EPIC in terms of engaging with your kids.
The big thing is that I don't want my kids to grow up with this, expectation, right? So a lot of the ways we do connect, and I think, obviously to connect with your children, it's like there's the fun stuff and I take each of my kids out on their own and all this stuff. But where I feel like the real connections happen is when we can open up and be really vulnerable and honest with each other. My oldest is a teenage boy, and the way he opens up to me, sometimes honestly surprises me. But I realize it's because in our family, we've created this environment of you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all A's. I don't expect you to never make a mistake. I expect you to learn from every mistake. And yes, there are consequences for certain things, but I want to hear it all. I want to know it all. My goal is not to, make you feel horrible. My goal is to help you learn the lessons and to build you up.
The episode I selected for the second guidepost P, Passionate and Purposeful Impact Beyond Our Family, is one with Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton. Even as she grieved for the murder of her son, Sabrina found a powerful vision for providing support and inspiration to other mothers who lost children to gun violence like her. Listen to what she has to say about how this vision came to her and what she set in motion afterward.
The Circle of Mothers was a dream that I had. And I woke up in the middle of the night and it was so vivid as if I had already attended the Circle of Mothers and I was just recording what I had already saw. And I just got up and I got a notepad and a pen and I just started writing. Well, the next morning when I woke up, I had pages and pages and pages of this event that I thought that I had attended, and it was so real. It was so natural. I saw purple everywhere, which is my favorite color. I saw moms everywhere. I saw moms crying. I saw moms laughing. I just saw all of us coming together. Didn't really know what it was, but one of the things that I can say is when I went through the tragedy of losing my son, there was no group, there was no organization, there was no support group for me to help me with what I was going through. Every year, as a part of the Circle of Mothers, we usually have about 100 moms. The first year we sponsor the moms, but the years after that, they have to get their own sponsorship. But I never have a shortage of moms. I have a shortage of funds. And so try to have around about 100 moms, and we give them little goodie bags, little swag bags that say the Circle of Mothers, and we put all kind of nice little stuff, corral my friends together, and I'd be like, listen, can you give me a little bottle of your favorite perfume or your favorite lotion? Or because I don't want junk in their bag. I want them to really have some good things. So I tell people to give me their favorite candle or their favorite lotion, their favorite shower gel, or their favorite nail polish, or just all kind of, I go all over. And it's about bonding. There is, a space in there where I have a psychologist to come out and kind of get in their heads a little bit, try to find out where they are in the grieving process so they can identify where they are so that they can move to the next step. A lot of people, that's kind of painful to identify where you are, but it's necessary. And so we do this surgery while they're there during that weekend. And then I have a comedian to come out. I don't want them to just be sad. I don't want all of us to come together and we're sad. We have enough of those days. So I do have a comedian to come out to make them laugh. I have somebody to sing, somebody to dance, and it's really uplifting event. And then the last day I have a spiritual service where they get connected with God. They get connected with just, moving to the next level spiritually. And so it's really a good event. I don't advertise much about it because it's so personal to the moms. It's so personal to us that you don't want to record that. And it's like almost like a commercial,
Right.
and I don't want that. I want them to have their private time that if they want to cry, they could cry. If they want to laugh, they could laugh, whatever they want to do. But I don't need it like out. I don't need it so public. It's something private and it's something personal. And there is information about it on the website. And, it's just an event where we talk about like a lot of different things, but I challenge them with different things. Like you need to meet 3 moms and that's one night. And then the daytime, they need to meet 3 more moms and then 3 more moms and not just meet them, but exchange numbers. And so now I have moms that from California that know moms in New York, and the moms in New York know the moms in Texas, and the Texas mom know the Florida moms. And and they're all over the place, and I could see them connecting, which is good. Then the last thing I do before I end it, I tell them that, because they all say, thank you, thank you, thank you. The thank you that I want is for them to go back into their communities and help other mothers.
Yeah.
That's the thank you I want, to start a circle of mothers in your community. And even if you don't call it circle of mothers, just do the work because it'll benefit them a lot more when they see themselves helping other mothers. It kind of takes the pain. It doesn't take it away, but it lessens the pain because you're helping someone else.
For the epic guidepost I invested in ourselves, I kept coming back to the lessons I learned from health advocate and mom to 2 girls with chronic illness, Nancy Netherland. In magical moments, gratitude, and widening the space, Nancy has found a way to care for herself while also caring for her children.
So you started to move into the I in EPIC, which stands for invested in yourself, because you're talking about some of the ways in which you have supported your ability to move through this by going into reading and back to your Buddhist practices. You said something about the book Man's Search for Meaning and how you widen the space. I'd like to understand more about that.
Yeah. So Viktor Frankl, and I'm going to do disservice to someone who I think is an incredibly eloquent writer, was a psychiatrist and psychologist, I believe, in Germany. And he was, he and his wife, he was newly married, were Jewish and were put in concentration camps. And he was really fascinated by, even while he was undergoing absolute horrible conditions, he was really fascinated by what motivated some people in the camps to help each other and what made it so that other people reacted in a very normal way and a very intuitive way for preservation or self-preservation. And so he used the example that there would be a piece of bread dropped on the floor and everyone was starving. And of course, like, our primal instinct is to eat when we're starving. And so very without judgment, he would observe that some people would grab that piece of bread and put it in their mouth immediately because they were starving and they wanted the additional food. And other people would grab the piece of bread and hand it back to the person who dropped it
And so he started he survived living in the concentration camps. His wife did not, and his rest of his family did not. And he eventually, I believe, moved to America and became really renowned as a psychologist and a writer, or psychiatrist and a writer. And I'm going to get this wrong, but there's a part of his writing in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, where he talks about his epiphany that while he was in the camps and he was forced to do labor, that the one thing that no one could ever take away from him was how he chose to react or what he chose to attach to or remember. So he would be like marching with, like hurting and like not in the icy, on the icy ground and just struggling, and the guards were hitting people and threatening to kill them, and he would choose to think about his honeymoon, or he would choose to think about these times with his wife and the beauty of that, and that no one could ever take that away from him. And in doing that, he realized he had control over his reaction. So instead of, as he talked about, like showing how much pain he was in or his fear, he would cling to, or not cling, but he would attach to something that was really positive, that gave him hope and gave him strength and gave him fortitude, and that had meaning. And so he talked about creating meaning through making a choice of what we attach to or how we react. Sorry, that was a little long-winded and convoluted.
Yeah, and amazing. I do have that book on my bedside table, and I've read some parts of it, but you've inspired me to go back and really look at it, because it's such a powerful way to approach life. And can you give me an example of an experience where you've taken this practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, having sick kids and really sick kids it's kind of like for me, in some ways, it's kind of the worst case scenario. Do you know? I mean, I know that there are things that are far worse, and I do think about that all the time. I could be having sick kids in a really under-resourced setting, and that would be far worse. And I could have, so part of what I started doing is I was like, yeah, this is really bad. Suffering is really bad. And having really sick kids who might not get better, and having had my oldest daughter have an illness that didn't have a cure, and probably had we not found the miracle of this clinical trial, could have and would have ended her life at some point, or would have resulted in liver failure and cancer. I mean, but I had this realization that as bad as that was, and it was bad, I mean, it doesn't get so much worse than that I still had a choice, and that I could still be really intentional about what I chose to attach to. So that was real. I mean, that's indisputably real. And Amelia being so sick, and us spending so much time in the hospital, and we're still looking at more MRIs, and we're looking at infusions, and no one really knows what the illness is. And she wastes, and she can't, she has trouble walking, and that's all horrible. And it's all, again, totally real. At the same time, there's this other whole part of life that's going on that's also real. And so I decided I got to choose, and I could make the hierarchy of what I attach to and all this stuff. And so I could just attach to the things that are really hard. And I'm not in any way minimizing how hard they are. Well, maybe a little bit, but, or I could attach to the other stuff. And so I decided to attach to the parts of being a mom that are totally amazing and magical. And so every day I get up and I'm like, today I'm thinking about something that's going to be magical and give our family pleasure. I'm going to think about some way that I can personally practice gratitude for things that I have, or things that go on around me, in a way that I model for my kids. And I'm also going to make sure that I plan and I front load a lot of normal childhood magic into my kids' lives. And it's a lot of work, because when your kid's really sick, like, there's just a lot of work that goes into making sure that you can do slumber parties, and you can do overnights, and you can do trips to Tahoe or the beach. And I just made it my mission to attach to creating what I call like a framework of magic and normalcy in the midst of all this other stuff going on.
And for the Epic Guidepost C, connected to a strong support network, I thought about my conversation with mom coach and writer of the Motherhood Bill of Rights, Graham Seabrook. Graham reminded me of the importance of connecting to our ancestors, of telling our stories, and of our co-created 1 Minute Mom Manifesto Challenge?
It has been a coming to terms with the fact that they are already in me. And I think that's part of why Lauren's talk was so transformative for me, that I have already joined them. It is not something that I have to wait to do, that I am already a part of them. And they have been with me this whole entire time. And they are already with my children. We're not alone.
Yeah.
Even if we're not physically here, right? We're not alone. So yeah, that is the connection. That is what we will be taking with us.
That's really beautiful. And I think, around Mother's Day, this realization, which I've been getting more curious about for myself too, that we are, connected to our matriarchs, and just this way in which, we are building on the legacy that they created for us, and we're passing that to our children.
Yes.
And imagining Mother's Day not only as our own day, but a day to really honor and remember our matriarchal lineage that brought us here.
Yeah.
In my mind right now, listening to you.
Yeah. And also not necessarily the blood lineage, but the chosen lineage as well, because some of us have deep wounds with our mothers.
Yeah.
And so it can be really painful on Mother's Day. But on Mother's Day, part of what I will be doing this year is honoring all of my ancestors and my claimed ancestors, as well as blood ancestors, the related ones. So women like Octavia Butler and Audre Lorde and Maya Angelou I claim them as my ancestors, even though I am not directly descended from them. So if your relationship with your mother was not what you needed it to be, there are so many amazing women in the world. Oh my goodness. So many that you can claim, that you can learn from, that you can sit at their feet, either literally or metaphorically, and have them as an ancestor.
I love that. The awareness of our claimed ancestors. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, let's move on to our collective challenge.
Yay! I'm so excited.
Me too. You and I were brainstorming earlier, and we realized we had this common desire. Usually I would have you give me a challenge, but instead we're co-creating this one, which I think is going to be amazing. So do you want to explain it?
Well, it started because I called the Mother's Bill of Rights a manifesto. And you said, oh, manifesto. And we had the same thought kind of at the same time. So this challenge will be for all of you listening to create your own manifesto. Can you hear all of them just freaking out? Like, I can't do that. Oh my God.
No, it's too big.
No, Julie solved that problem for you guys though.
So my thought, which I had in the shower the other day, because I have been holding this idea of a manifesto. In fact, I've been trying to write a manifesto for years, and it has felt too big and overwhelming to me. And so the other day I had this thought of it needs to be a 1 minute manifesto, because let's be real, we don't have time.
Who has that kind of time?
And it can becomes an overwhelming feeling. So in 1 minute or less, what are the things that really matter most to you in your motherhood journey? What do you want to claim or reclaim for how you want to show up as a mother and a person and a human in your life during this time when you're raising your children? So for Mother's Day, this episode's coming out just before Mother's Day, and we want to kick off an invitation using the hashtag 1 Minute Mom Manifesto for you to share what your thoughts are, what you want to claim in a video or in writing or in photos or whatever way is helpful to express that.
I am so excited. So excited about that.
And then I also mentioned to you that my vision for this is to experience 1 million of these.
Yes.
So we will start this year And who knows when we will hit, but I have no doubt there will be a million 1 Minute Mom manifestos.
We need them. We need each other, and we need each other's stories.
Along with listening to the episodes, it was actually my son, Ryan, who really helped me. Telling him one night while putting dishes in the dishwasher for what felt like the 10th time that day that I was feeling depressed, he asked me, "When was the last time you felt connected to your purpose, Mom? I notice you haven't talked about Mother's Quest in weeks." That question really sat with me. And then I remembered Graham's words again. Our stories matter. Our manifestos matter. And we need each other. With that, and a few other sparks along the way, I got back to recording. I released an episode about the families seeking asylum at the border, a mini-sode about the creation of a pandemic promise to myself, and this Mother's Day special episode that you're listening to right now. And I set in motion some epic plans for our 3rd annual Mother's Quest Manifesto Challenge, the one Graham and I had created together. Taking place in the free Mother's Quest Facebook group, it's a 7-day journey beginning tomorrow, May 11th, to reclaiming ourselves, a chance to reflect together along a new process I'm naming Choose, and to create or refine our own manifestos for living our lives the way that matters. Yes, even in the midst of a pandemic. There are links to sign up in the show notes, and I so hope you'll join us. As for me, I've learned on Mother's Day that in addition to spending time with my children, I need some time to myself. So today I'll be going on my favorite milestone hike. And when I reach the summit, I'll sit down, look at the view, and listen to my favorite meditation, one called Teshuvah, or return in Hebrew, that brings new meaning to the idea of setting out on a journey and returning home, of losing our center and finding it again. So this Mother's Day, I invite you to find your center again as you ask yourself some of the same questions I've been exploring. In what ways have you been feeling trapped? When was the last time you felt connected to your purpose? And what might it take for you to open a door for yourself, to choose yourself, and to take even just one tentative step closer to your version of an epic life? Happy Mother's Day. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about how to join the Mother's Quest community, visit mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and help us to spread the word. I want to end with some words to help light the way on your quest. Seize the day, love your people, honor your gifts. Until next time.